Okay, yeah, hi. So in this session, we are going to discuss about the different types of views. Before that, we have to first understand the concept behind the views. So the concept behind the views is the star schema. Basically, any data which we store in any of the databases in the world actually stores data in two-dimensional tables. But whereas in the data warehousing concept and the same thing in HANA concept as well, we store the data in multi-dimensional concept, which is called star schema, in which we'll have all the key figures in the fact table and the characteristics in the dimension. So what does it mean from the HANA perspective is, from the HANA perspective, we'll have all the measures in the fact table, and we will be having all the attributes in the dimension table. Now, what does it happen with this? What would be the advantage of going with a star schema is the repetitive data can be stored only once and mapping will be done. For example, I have a particular field like city, and city most probably might be repeated for employees. For example, I'll take the example of an employee data. So we will have all the employee salary, date of joining, all these details in the fact table, and this dimension table will have the attributes in the sense any characteristic values. So it can be characteristic and it can be alphanumeric as well. So those are stored in dimension. So according to our example, there might be many employees for whom the city is repeated. So in two-dimensional data storing, we will have that city also being uploaded again and again. It will be stored again and again. So if we have 1 lakh employees from the same city, city name will be loaded 1 lakh times. Whereas in data warehousing concept and as well as in the HANA as well, we will be storing the data only once, and the mapping will be done again and again for all the employee details for whom we have the same city. So the city is stored only once and it will be repetitively being used or repetitively being mapped by the system instead of storing it again and again. So this is the concept of a star schema, and this is the advantage of going ahead with the data warehousing concept in HANA. So all the fields are called attributes. I mean, like the characteristic values. If at all, if we are you are coming from the BW background, then they are called characteristics, and characteristics and key figures. Those are called as attributes and measures. But if at all, if you're not from the BW background, then let me explain you what exactly are attributes and measures. So when we go back to the start schema, in which all the characteristic values will be stored in dimensions, and the fact table will allow us to store only numbers. So numeric values only will be entered in the fact table. Other than that, we'll also have dimension ids are like foreign key relation between the fact table and the dimension tables. So in this, what we'll be doing is, in from the HANA perspective, we'll have attribute views. All these dimension tables are attribute views. So if you can, if we understand in this way, like how many attribute views are there in this particular screen on our screen, we have 4 attribute views. Means we have these dimensions are called attribute views, and in the middle we have the fact table together with attribute views, and a fact table will make an analytical view. So analytical view is similar to cubes in BW, SAP BW or any other data warehousing technology. So these are equivalent to an analytical view is equivalent to a cube in data warehousing. So here, and you will have fact tables surrounded by all the dimension tables, and dimension tables in HANA are called attribute views. So, and now the measures will be stored in fact table, and the dimensions, I mean like the attributes, are stored in the dimension tables. Those are called attribute views. So what we will be doing in the assignments is, like, first we'll be building couple of attribute views which we can make use of to build the analytical view later. And with this process, the data is compressed and stored, but still we can get all the data in the particular system. So we'll be having in every project that we normally do here for creation of attribute views and analytical views, calculation views. We basically will have the modeling part where we design the views, wherein we build and we need to create the fields that are attributes and measures which have to exist in that particular view, and then we have to check the consistency as well at the modeling level, and then we have to go with the replication. So replication is actually the process of loading the data into, getting the data into the views, and then reporting is to check out this data in the report, like a business object reports, and wherein we can build the universe upon the data, and then we can on the universe we can build up the the reports on a particular concept, like it might be Excel CS, or it might be web intelligence or crystal reports or whatsoever. So for this process to happen, like we have the data coming from various source systems. So we'll connect with initially we'll load the data from or say some flat files like Excel sheets and something like that. So then we will also replicate the data from ECC system, and then we'll load the data into the HANA system. So technically all the data is stored in database tables and are viewed from the views. Okay, this is one scenario which we can take into consideration when we are loading the data into the HANA system. So let's say we have an ERP system in which we have sales data, finance data, controlling data, and controlling we have the product costing data and order processing data as well. So from this we want to get this data into the HANA system, and on this we want to build upon the reports on business objects or other applications. So this is what actually is a particular scenario which I was just talking about. This is a precisely a particular concept for which we are going to do a scenario and get the data here. So now here, like once we have this data here, we'll be able to do the reporting on it. So like this is basically the HANA table relations. I'll just discuss with you here. Yeah, so here we already have this is called you know the yellow cockpit, in which we'll have all the various in yellow cockpit we'll have all the various data sources, and so whatever attribute views we are doing, whatever data loading we are doing it through the SAP HANA Studio. So it's very important for us to understand the HANA Studio. So this is how it looks like. We're going to see the live session. We're going to do that in the system where we have the server under which we have the catalog, security, content, and the system. So here we have we'll be basically creating all these views like attribute views, analytical views, and calculation views, also stored procedures and analytical privileges as well. So these all can be built from the HANA Studio, and there will be different perspectives, in which one of them is HANA Studio perspective. So processing information models and managing modeling content by performing multiple administration activities. So we can also do the administration part here from the security. And then we have importing tables and table definitions from the source ERP systems. We are going to replicate the tables, and those tables we can have this in the HANA perspective, HANA development perspective. You can check them in the from the catalog. So once we replicate the data from ECC or any source system, those tables we can check in catalog. So what we are going to do initially is we are going to design a couple of new tables on our own from here itself, and we can also replicate the tables from the ECC. Both the things we'll do. So in that way we can go ahead with the concept of data replication from ECC Studio. So attributes will be the descriptive data known as characteristics in SAP BW, and measures data that can be quantified and calculated, that the key figures in BW. And we have attribute views; those are equivalent to dimensions in the star schema. and analytical views is equivalent to cubes. This is what we actually discussed just now theoretically. So calculation views are similar to virtual provider with service concept in PW. So you can imagine calculation view as a combination of multiple cubes or combination of multiple analytical views. So calculation views has a lot of scope. We can build calculation views on any of the views or even tables as well. So we're going to do that. So the terminology what we use is modeling. So information models are used to create multiple views of transaction data that can be used for analytical purposes. So we have this information models. So we will be physically, I mean, like, we'll always have the data in the physical tables. Okay, views enables us to check the data from the physical tables and import and export the data. We can do that. Those things will do it.